Number one question is enumerate and define the different learners with additional needs. So the first one is learners who are gifted and talented. So these are the students who excel in specific areas such as academics or leadership. For example, me, who excels in mathematics and participates in advanced enrichment programs. The second one is the learners with difficulty seeing. Individuals with visual impairment that affect their ability to see clear. For example, Alex, who uses braille materials due to visual impairment. The third one is the learners with difficulty hearing with impairments. So, for example of this is the Emily who wears aids to support her communication in class. The fourth one is learners with difficulty communicating, so individuals who struggle to express thoughts or emotions effectively. For example, Jake, who uses an AAC device to express his thoughts and needs. The fifth one is the learners with difficulty moving or walking. Students with physical disabilities affecting mobility and coordination. So, for example of this is Mia, who requires a wheelchair for mobility due to a physical disability. So, the sixth one is the learners with difficulty remembering and focusing. So, these are the individuals who challenges with memory retention, maintaining attention. For example, Liam, who benefits from strategies to improve memory and attention in learning tasks. The seventh, or the last, is the learners with difficulty with self-care. These are the students whose difficulties in performing daily living activities independently. So, for example of this is the Daniel, who receives support to develop skills like grooming and dressing independently. The second question is compare and contrast the learners with additional needs based on the identification and learning characteristics. So number one, learners who are gifted and talented. Identification is identified through exceptional abilities in areas such as academics, arts, or leadership. So the learning characteristics is often demonstrate advanced skills, quick learning, high creativity, and may require enrichment activities. So second is the learners with difficulty seeing. So they are identified diagnosed with visual impairment that affect their ability to see clearly. So their learning characteristics may require accommodations such as braille materials, large print, or assistive technology for learning. So the third one is learners with difficulty hearing. So they identified experience hearing impairments that impacts communication and also their learning. So their learning characteristics benefits from assistive devices like hearing aids in language and prefer visual aids for learning. The fourth one is the learners with difficulty communicating. They are identified face challenges in expressing thoughts, ideas, or emotions effectively. So their learning characteristics may benefits from alternative communication methods such as AAC devices and require support in language development. The fifth one is the learners with difficulty moving or walking. They are identified as physical disabilities that affect mobility and coordination. Their learning characteristics require physical accommodations, specialized equipments, and also the support for physical activities. So the sixth one is the learners with difficulty remembering and focusing. So they identified struggle with memory, retention, and maintaining attention on every task. Their learning characteristics benefits from strategies to improve memory, focus, organizations, and may require support in staying engaged. The last one who is that is the learners with difficulty with self-care. They identified experience, challenges, and performing daily living activities independently. Their learning characteristics require assistance in developing self-care skills, may need personalized instruction, and support in daily routines. The number three questions is what challenges do learners with speech and language difficulties encounter in the areas of communication and socialization? So, in communication, learners with speech and language difficulties may struggle to express themselves clearly, leading to misunderstandings and frustration. So, in socialization, they may find it challenging to engage in conversation, follow social cues, and build relationships, which can impact their interactions with peers and overall social integration. Number four question is what accommodations can be given to learners with communicating difficulties. So accommodations for these learners with communicating difficulties may include providing visual aids, using alternative communications methods like AAC devices, allowing extra time to responses, breaking down information into smaller chunks, offering repetition and reinforcement, and ensuring a supportive and inclusive learning environment for them to better understand the lesson.
What are the similarities and differences between learners with developmental coordination disorder and the stereotypic movement disorder? So these are the similarities. DCD and the stereotypic movement disorder can both have a major effect on a client's day-to-day functioning because symptoms and appearances of both illnesses are similar. Diagnosis can be difficult. So the difference are disorder of development coordination or DCD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that impairs coordination of movement, or it includes issues with motor skills and coordination, resulting in clumsiness and unsteadiness, or activities like writing, tying shoelace, or participating in sports, and may be difficult for those with DCD. And the DCD or disorder stereotypic movement, repetitive dysfunctional motor motions are a feature of a stereotypic movement disorder. And these motions, including flapping the hands or rocking the body, are frequently exaggerated. So typically, purposely, the movements of people with stereotypic movement disorder might cause disruptions to their everyday routines. Number 6. How can classroom be arranged to help learners with difficulty in moving or in walking? So first is minimize distances. So, facilitate the movement of students with mobility impairments. Minimize the distances that they must traverse. traverse. Minimize the distances that they must traverse within the classroom. The second one is open spaces. To facilitate simple access, make sure that there is enough room between workstation. And the next is visual clues. To give clues or to give visual clues for distance and organizing. Use carpet, squares, or tape on the floor. And the next one is formation or line formation. To offer assistance and guarantee safe movement, think about having the student with mobility issues lead the line or stand at the end. And then last, setting up the classroom for students who have trouble walking or moving. So, number 7. How is learning disability or ELD different from specific learning disability or SLD? What are the different types of SLD? So, learning disability or LD refers to a generic term for a range of disorders affecting the acquisition and use of language, reasoning, or mathematical abilities. Also, it refers to difficulties in learning that are intrinsic to the individual and presumed to be due to central nervous system dysfunction. And the specific learning disability or SLD is more specific term referring to a complex neurological condition that hinders the acquisition, processing, and expression of information, particularly in academic aspect. So SLD includes impedance in basic psychological processes like language, reading, writing, or mathematical calculation. So, the following are the types of a specific learning disability. The first one is dyslexia, a specific learning disorder related to reading. The next one is dysgraphia. Dysgraphia refers to learning disorder related to writing, and dyscalculia refers to specific learning disorder related to mathematics.
Number 8. How can lessons and concepts be presented to maximize learning among students with memory and focusing difficulties? So, to effectively present lessons and concepts to maximize learning among students with memory and focusing difficulties, educators or teachers can employ various strategies. So the very first one is visual aids. Utilize visual aids such as diagrams, charts, and images to help reinforce concept visually. The second one is multisensory learning. Incorporate different senses into learning, such as hands-on activities to engage students with varied learning styles. The third one is repetition and recap. Regularly review previous lesson and concepts to reinforce memory and understanding. Fourth one is use of technology. Implement educational apps and tools that cater to individualized learning needs, offering interactive and engaging content. The fifth one is encourage active participation. Foster student engagement through discussion, group activities, and interactive learning experiences. Number 9. What educational approaches can be used to teach learners how to care for themselves? So, when teaching learners how to care for themselves, educators or teachers can utilize the following educational approaches. So, the first one is task analysis. Break down self-care tasks into smaller steps using task analysis to facilitate learning and mastery of skills. The second one is modeling. Demonstrate self-care tasks as a visual guide for learners to observe and imitate. The third one is visual supports. Use visual aids such as schedules and picture prompts to assist learning in remembering the steps involved in self-care routines. Number 10. Choose a self-care skill and apply task analysis to help the child skill. Identify the steps and materials you will use. So the self-care skill is the proper hand washing. And the materials to be needed are, of course, the soap, towel, and sink with running water. So the first step is turn on the water. The second step is wet hands. Place hands under running water. The third step is apply soap. Take a suitable amount of soap and lather in hands. The fourth step is rub hands together. Rub hands palm to palm. Rub the back of each hand. Interlace fingers and rub. Rub the back of fingers against the opposite palm. And then rub the thumb of each hand. And rub the fingertips of each hand against the opposite palm. And the fifth step is rinse hands. Rinse hands thoroughly under running water. And the sixth step is dry hands. Use a clean towel to dry the hands. And the seventh step is turn off the water. Turn off the tap with a towel to avoid recontamination. So by breaking down the self-care task of proper hand washing into these sequential steps and providing the necessary materials and visual supports, the educators or teachers can effectively teach children these essential skills in a structured and manageable manner.